Hi everybody, I am back. It's been a long time since my last video, but October was a very, very busy month for me. I had two conventions, which I'm going to tell you about today, but unfortunately after the second convention I got very, very sick, and I was battling the flu for about close to 3 weeks. So, of course, couldn't really talk without coughing or losing my voice, so didn't really make sense to make videos. But I am finally back, so stay tuned and be sure to subscribe because lots more is on the way. Anywho, let me tell you about the conventions from October. So first of all, I was a first-time vendor at the Chicago Non-Sport Card Show, which I had actually been trying to get into for about a year and a half. But every time I heard about a new show, it was completely sold out for vendor spaces. However, this time around, I was on their mailing list, and about, just maybe a week before the show, I got an email saying, hey, we had a space open up, let us know if you're interested, and I jumped on it. So I spent an entire week going through all of my cards, tons of 90s stuff. I had boxes and binders of Magic, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Marvel cards, all kinds of movie cards like Jurassic Park. I had some like old video game cards, Sonic the Hedgehog, things like that. And again, an entire week just feverishly like putting everything into sleeves or into binders, just getting tons and stuff ready. And the show itself was a Friday afternoon and a Saturday. So most of the day, I want to say it was from like 9 to 3 or 4, something like that. So got everything ready, loaded up my car on Friday, drove down to set up, and the convention itself, or the show rather, was in a hotel's multi-purpose room. So it was somewhat smaller than other conventions I've been to, but still a decent space for a card show, in my opinion. However, I won't say the show was bad, but not really what I expected. So when I think of non-sport cards, I think Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, like trading card games. But this show seemed to be catered more to maybe vintage would be the word cards. So most of the other vendors, all the ones that I spoke with were awesome, really nice people, no offense to them whatsoever. But it seemed that almost every other vendor was an older, retired guy, and they all seemed to be buddies, and this was kind of like something they've been doing together for who knows how long. So I felt a little out of place. And financially, I brought, I'd say, obviously I never expect to sell everything, but I'd say I brought at least a couple $1,000s worth of merchandise. So I brought cards, of course, and I brought some collectibles, action figures, little figurines, and a few bins of video games, because I figured just bring it all, see what works. And nothing did. So all said and done, after making back what I paid for the booth, over the course of 2 days, I only made about $100, which compared to the other conventions I've done was horrendous. But I still had a good time. It was a learning experience, and I don't know for sure that it's something I would do again, unless I knew for sure the show would be busier. But again, it was a good time, and the other vendors were really cool, really nice. My neighbor to the right, especially. So because I was running the booth by myself, I didn't have too much time to kind of wander around and shop. But I noticed at one point he had a customer who was about to buy something, and I overheard him say, "Oh no, it's a Blu-ray. I don't have a Blu-ray player." And that kind of caught my attention. And I looked over, and I saw in a box just this logo kind of peeking out. And I'm like, "Oh, Babylon 5, what's that?" So I walk over, And I look, and it is the brand new Babylon 5 animated movie. And so I'm like, oh, cool. You know, I still haven't seen this yet. And I asked the vendor, my neighbor, who I'd already been chatting with a bit, you know, how much are the movies? He's like, $1 each. This just came out like 2 months ago, and it's sealed for $1. Oh my God. I was like, hell yeah. So very, very happy to get that. And I think that was Friday afternoon. Because I recall I came in Saturday morning, and I noticed at his booth he was constantly adding new things like as they sold. So he had a few Marvel Legends figures, which I don't really regularly collect them. I just kind of grab my favorites. Like if you see my previous videos, I picked up the Marvel Zombies, for example. But one figure that I always had my eye on was Frogman, which was part of the Spider-Verse wave from a couple of years ago. And he had it for $5. Brand new. I was like, yeah, done. I generally tend to stick to like the Spider-Man figures or the Marvel Zombies, as I mentioned before, but I also like kind of the oddball characters. Like Frogman is pretty cool, especially for $5. And then later on in the day, at one point I had a lot of people at my booth kind of looking over my Pokemon cards and whatnot. And then after they moved on, you know, he was chatting with me. He's like, wow, you know, you had, you know, quite a few people. And I'm like, yeah, it seems to kind of go in waves. You know, it gets busy, really slow, and blah, blah, blah. So we're just chatting. And then I noticed earlier in the day, he had a couple of the NECA Universal Monster figures tagged for $20 each, which is already a great price because they're typically about $30 to $35 each. And I just kind of offhandedly mentioned, I'm like, yeah, you know, if I make a little bit more money today, I will pick up all of your NECA figures. And he's like, I'll do 10 each right now. 10 each. So I got all 3 figures for $30. Just one is usually over 30. Oh my God. I was like, yes, done. And these are very, very cool figures if you haven't seen them. They're based on the classic Universal monster movies. And they have a bunch of accessories. And from what I understand, I believe they have the, you know, the official likenesses of all the original actors. And then here's the Wolfman. Give you a quick peek at him. Very cool. So, yeah, I was ecstatic with all of that. So, what, 30, 35, $36 for probably like well over $100 worth of stuff. So, awesome. Also, kind of a funny thing. So, the other vendors, again, this was my first time at the show, so I didn't really know anybody or the history of it or whatever. But there was one guy who I believe he runs the show or had been. I was told this was his last show, so my first show is his last, unfortunately. But the other vendors all made kind of like tribute cards to him. So hopefully you can see some of these. It was, you know, interesting. Like, just imagine going somewhere and then somebody's like, here's a homemade thing of you that I created. Like, I've never heard of that, but it's cool. Like, again, like I said, they were all buddies and it seems to be a tradition. So I had a good time. Didn't make any money, but had a good time. Oh, and then one final thing from the show. So I had a lot of people asking if I was open to trades, and I don't really collect Magic or Pokemon anymore, so I was like, nah, you know, the one thing we do collect, though, is Lorcana, the Disney trading card game. And I actually had I think it was a father and his 2 sons. They were like, yeah, you know, we got some cards, take a look. And I was able to trade, I think it was just one old Decipher Star Wars, customizable card game? Or like the Star Wars CCG from like the late 90s. I randomly, you know, had a slew of cards. I traded like one R2-D2 card for 2 Lorcana cards. So here is the Teka from Moana. That's the, I think that's a super rare card, which was one, we're trying to complete the set of, I think it's like 204 cards. So that's one we needed for our set. And then I also got another Grab Your Sword, which is a card I use in my personal deck. So very happy to get those for essentially free. So that's about it for the card show. Again, had a good time, got some really amazing stuff for dirt cheap, but not sure if I'll be going back in the future. Time will tell. Anyway, 2 weeks after that, I went back to the Chicago Toy Show, which, if anyone's been around for a while, I did a previous video back for the July show, which was my first time, and I had a fantastic time there. Met some really cool vendors, made a lot of money, and bought some cool stuff. So at that show, the July show that is, every other vendor I talked to said the October show was 10 times as busy. They make a ton more money. It's just insanity. So I was really excited for this show. I had been getting stuff ready for a couple months. I spent that 2-week period between the card show and the Chicago Toy Show just going through everything I have, pricing everything, boxing it all up, getting ready. And here, let me throw in a quick walkthrough of my booth. So you can see I brought an extra table, which you're not supposed to do, with a bunch of Dino Riders stuff. I have the original Brontosaurus with its box, which is a lot of money. I also decided to bring a ton of video games. So you can see I have a couple bins full of everything from PS1 up to PS4, Xbox, Xbox 360, a lot of Nintendo stuff, and then a bunch of PlayStation Vita games. Also had a lot of Lego sets, a lot of which were ones that I picked up at thrift stores over the years, but I went through every single set, checked every single piece, and wrote like a handwritten note saying, you know, it's missing this, it's 100% complete, whatever. Then I had a lot of video game themed toys and collectibles, so some stuff from like Splatoon, some older Mario stuff, some Pokemon toys. I had some various Star Wars things, like lightsabers and whatnot, and then just a whole bunch of random stuff. So some little individual toys and figures, some board games, and of course, a couple Ouija boards. So you can see from the video, I had a lot of stuff, a lot of pretty good variety in my opinion, and I was, really expecting a lot of it to sell. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it was just because of where my booth was situated. I was between a vendor that mainly had a lot of kind of, I guess you would call it antique things. So he had a lot of like lunch boxes and stuff like that. And then the vendor on the other side had a lot of little like tin cars and things like tin cars and planes, things like that. So I don't know if people just kind of passed me over because of that, but did not go as well as I was expecting or hoping. And actually, I think financially it might have even been a little bit less than I made at the July show, which was just kind of baffling to me. But again, still had a good time. Still certainly made some money, and actually ran into a couple friends. Bumped into a couple of friends from high school, a friend from college I hadn't seen since college, and then I actually met a YouTube celebrity. I met Pixel Dan, who was the person who actually encouraged me to do the show in the first place. So when I first heard about the Chicago Toy Show, I looked on YouTube for any videos to see what it was like, and it was Pixel Dan's walkthrough of the spring show that convinced me to try it out. So I have no idea if he's watching, but it was great to meet you. So very, very cool. Actually, surprisingly, at that show, I did not buy anything. Yeah, this is me. I'm as shocked as you are. At that show, I was actually on my own. At the July show, my fiance helped me out, but she was actually out of town on a business trip for her job, so I was kind of flying solo. But still, it was okay. My neighbors, neighboring vendors were nice enough to watch the booth if I had to use the restroom or whatever, and I did the same for them. So that is kind of it. As I said, I didn't have any pickups at or after the toy show, unfortunately, but did get some cool stuff over the last couple months. I'm going to have some cool pickup videos for you coming soon. And also, now that I am not sick and can actually breathe, I'm going to be doing a lot more variety of videos in the very near future, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again.